everyone, Maury Mo here. I have a new theory for Star Wars The Bad Batch about Omega. This is about how Omega could be frozen in carbonite and probably near the end of the season or the series. So let's get started. First of all, so I've been going over many different theories about her, and most of my theories are based on folklore. I talk about this on Twitter and Reddit, and I'll put links down below, but I'm going to be looking at it through the heroine's journey, based on the classic fairy tale trope of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is an Aarne Thompson Uther folktale type of number 709. So let's break it down. Okay. So first of all, the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell, and Star Wars. Okay, so first you need to know that George Lucas is a huge fan of Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell was professor of literature and became really well known in a few decades ago for his pop culture book, Hero of a Thousand Faces. So Campbell saw all myths as being derived from one great monomyth and all stories as just variations of that myth. He was very much influenced by Carl Jung, who worked on mythic archetypes, and Sigmund Freud, who Carl Jung was a student of. But essentially, when you watch a Star Wars movie, particularly of the Skywalker saga, you are watching a Campbellian monomyth laid out with huge doses of Carl Jung mythic archetypes thrown in. So real short, I'm just going to go over the hero's journey in its broad three parts, which is the departure act, where the hero leaves their ordinary normal life, the initiation act, in which the hero faces challenges and temptations, the action of the story, and the return act, in which the hero returns home to bring back what they've learned. Now I'm going to go over the heroine's journey. So in 1990, Maureen Murdoch wrote The Heroine's Journey. She felt that Campbell's hero's journey didn't adequately reflect studies of heroines, stories of heroines, such as Beauty and the Beast or Snow White, which is about the healing of the wounded feminine within the protagonist and culture. So the heroine's journey, while the hero's journey is based on external events shaping the protagonist's story, the heroine's journey is more introspective. I would argue that even for Omega and Rey, their journeys incorporate aspects of both the hero and the heroine's journey. So a heroine's journey, I'm going to break this down a little bit more because it's a little more relevant to Omega. Okay, so first there's the separation from the feminine, then identification of the masculine and gathering of allies, roads of trials and meetings with ogres and dragons, finding the boon of success, spiritual aridity and death, initiation and descent to the goddess, urgent yearning to reconnect with the feminine, healing the mother-daughter split, healing the wounded masculine within, and finally integration of the masculine and feminine. So Snow White. Fairy tales and folk stories are all indexed numerically by the Aarne Thompson Uther Index. And I mention this because there's multiple versions of folk tales and similar elements. There's multiple versions of fairy tales and folk tales with similar elements and themes. And Snow White is number 709 as far as a group of story types that have the similar elements. Okay, Snow White and other 709 tales. Here's the breakdown. So a young heroine must flee her home from a toxic older female figure. Most of the time she'll be the stepmother, but sometimes the child's own mother. The main idea is that she is an older female figure that means to harm the girl. In some stories she's envious of the latter's beauty, and some tales that she just wants to get rid of someone who would take the wealth that she believes belongs to her. The girl will be persecuted and told to be killed by a hunter, handmaid, or other. The one who is sent to kill instead becomes an aid to the girl. The aid isn't dependent on gender and isn't always even human. The fleeing represents Campbell's departure act of the hero's journey and the heroine's separation from the feminine simultaneously. The girl will usually flee into the mythic world of the forest, or in one story, the land of fairies. In most stories it is the forest, and in Grimm's Tale she finds dwarves, and in The Dead Princess she finds 7 knights who are brothers. In the heroine's journey, this will be her alliance with the masculine. Symbolically, this is her gathering of friends in the hero's journey too. The main idea in 709 Tale is that the Snow White figure is an outcast but finds solidarity with other outcasts and becomes a temporary family. And you'll notice these figures are either supernatural, such as dwarves or fairies, or just peculiar people like the 7 knights living together in the middle of a forest. Snow White or the princess will become useful to the masculine ally she lives with. Since these are folk tales of centuries before, she does women's, quote-unquote, women's work for them. She shows herself to be industrious and willing to work despite any royal upbringing, though not all 709 stories feature nobility. In some stories, she's a tailor's daughter. Happiness will always be short-lived as the malevolent mother figure finds the girl's whereabouts and is outraged she is alive. She will find this out through animals or a mirror. Sometimes the girl, so simultaneously, the girl will miss her father or her fiancé, but not in all stories. The wicked mother figure either seeks to destroy the girl herself or hires a witch to do it for her. She will tempt the girl with something as simple as fruit, a dress from her father, or a spinning wheel. These items are poisoned or cursed. The crisis of all these tales is that the girl is rendered falsely dead. She is laid in a cave or paraded in crystal or a glass casket by the dwarves, fairies, or knights who love and mourn their sister figure. The crisis is resolved when she is rescued, usually by a prince. The mother figure is destroyed. Now moving on to Omega. So how does Omega fit in with the Snow White story? In episode 1 of The Bad Batch, Omega is already living in the castle of Camino. This is her home and all she's ever known. So one of the first things I noticed right away is in the teaser trailers, Omega wears the same kind of circlet that Kaminoan women wear. This is important because right away it signified that Omega is not regarded in the same utilitarian manner as other clones. And so someone, and I think it's Nalase, regards Omega as a person enough to share it in her own culture and feminine traditions. And this is a change from what we've seen of Nalase in the Clone Wars, where she regards the clones as products. In episode 2, Cut and Run, we have this one brief but emotional scene in which Omega removes her circlet and cries. While Omega was fine to flee for the Bad Batch, her likely brothers, because for now I think she is pretty much of the Fett template as the others, whether she's a Strandcast or not. But at any rate, it's clear she misses Camino and perhaps Nalase. And my question is Nalase a wicked mother figure or a helpful handmaid? This remains to be seen. We saw in the first episode that Nalase helped Omega escape, but this could have been just because she didn't want her most prized experiment to be killed. But there's a part of me that really does wonder if she cares for Omega because of that circlet. And Omega herself is naive but willing to work and industrious. We just saw in the last episode, number 5, that she gained a new weapon. And I think Omega's medical experience with Nalase is going to be instrumental in helping remove the headships of the rest of the Bad Batch. In episode 4, Omega is already going through the temptations of the typical Snow White story. Fennec Shan, who is sent to retrieve Omega, promises that she can help Omega reunite with her family. And, of course, we have a very obvious scene with fruit, which is, your typical Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs motif. So how does this mean Omega will be frozen in carbonite? I think following the basic Snow White structure, Omega is going to have the crisis in which she will be quote-unquote killed or believed to be dead or frozen in carbonite. If she'll be resurrected within the series, that's kind of up in the air. I think prior to that, following the heroine's journey, she will have a crisis of identity, perhaps learning that she's force sensitive. And one of my random guesses is that if she is resurrected within the series, it could be Crosshair that does this. And bear in mind, the heroine's journey one of its big steps is resolving the wounded masculine. And I think this will be most aptly portrayed with Crosshair. And as a couple of random theories, I think the Bad Batch may end the series dying for a cause. I don't like the idea of them all dying, but I have a feeling they will all die for various reasons. But I think saving Omega's life will be a big part of that. And I think this is why Omega will be the final of the Fett clones that are made on Kamino, because as her name implies, Omega, the end. It's a fairly ominous name. I do think she could be frozen and be protected to save her life, and that she could potentially be resurrected in an entirely different series, and maybe she won't be resurrected by Crosshair. Maybe all the Bad Batch will die for her, she's frozen in carbonite, and then in a future series she will be resurrected by someone. I do think prior to that, Omega will be reunite with Nalase, and I personally think Nalase is a bit more positive in this series. I think this will be part of her reconnecting to the feminine at the end of the heroine's journey. I could be wrong. She could have just nothing but bad intentions, and she could play the Wicked Mother figure, which in most Snow White stories, the Wicked Mother figure does not end well. You know, that's part of the conclusion of the story, is she usually dies. So it could go either way. I like the idea of Nalise being a more complex figure and part of Omega's reconnection to the feminine, but it could just go with her being the bad stepmother. But ultimately, Bad Batch is a series about finding one's place in the world and having an identity independent of your created circumstances. Slavery is a big part of this story of being controlled, being made for a purpose, and finding your own identity. And Omega and the Bad Batch working together will be about themselves learning how to integrate into a new world around them that wasn't really made for them, but becoming stronger people, becoming more integrated, and finding balance and finding a purpose. So I hope you like that theory. I'll leave links below to the original blog that I wrote, and as well as my brief thoughts on Twitter and Reddit. If you have any other theories of your own, be sure to comment, and I will read through them. So let me know what you think, okay? Have a great day, Star Wars people.